charcoal. It's essentially old organic material that's been carbonized and it becomes a fuel source. A lot of these boreal forests can do this as well. Now, the last thing we talked to the professor about was the climate impacts. Climate change is playing a big part in this, and so is the El Nino La Nina cycle. We talked about that going into hurricane season, and when you get persistent El Ninos in Canada, this tends to lead to bigger fire seasons, and he talked a little bit about that with us.
The situation is really, I can say, serious, and we need to act really fastly to reduce or at least to control the such type of negative impact for future. And even we need to consider again right now in the situation of the La Nina with the climate modeling. And even if we move again to El Nino can accelerate and can increase the average of temperature at least 1 degree. And again, the consequences will be really important.
Yeah, so if you want to hear the complete interview I had with him this morning, you can go to our WCNC Weather IQ YouTube channel, and we've got it all posted there as well. Pretty insightful, and I really appreciate Professor Bandakari coming on with us because he was actually traveling to London, so he talked to us from London, England. He was heading over there for a conference, but he is a professor at the University at Ottawa. That's where he does most of his research, and he's actually kind of interesting because his background is in civil engineering, but he started doing remote sensing and AI work in wildfire research. I wanted to end real quickly with just a look at where the wildfire situation is right now. This is a current map of what's happening in Canada, and this is as of June 18th, so right now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off the fire perimeter. We're going to turn off the hot spots. These are all the active fires. So for everybody who forgot about the wildfire smoke and the wildfires in Canada, these are the number of fires burning. You can see the biggest number is in British Columbia, parts of Alberta, Saskatchewan, and then Manitoba, and now we're seeing some in Ontario. So that large area, if we get another dip in the jet stream or we get a big ridge that builds over the middle of the country and we get northwest flow, we could see some of that wildfire smoke come back down here. And if you are traveling for vacation heading up to the Rocky Mountains or heading out west, you might experience some of that wildfire smoke from the Canadian wildfires. It's a very unique situation, much different than what we see here in the United States. So thanks for joining us tonight for Live Weather Impact. Don't go anywhere, though. Coming up in 2 minutes, Colin is going to have the latest on the breaking news of the day.
We're back up on WCNC Plus inside the Live Impact News studio, bringing you the latest developments that are ever changing here on WCNC Plus, which is why we bring you those breaking stories in real-time coverage. And the situation between Israel and Iran gets ever closer to Americans getting more involved, if not we have already been involved in some capacity, some might say. The president actually speaking on that just a couple of minutes ago, and also speaking on a potential plan to attack Iran with all of the escalation in the last couple of days. So let's go to the president, the latest information from him and the White House right now.
But they have a good team. Who are you playing tonight?
We're playing against the Emirati team.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah,
That's
strong.
Well, they spend a lot of money, right? They spend a lot of money, yeah. That's probably. Is it a strong team, good team tonight? Yeah, you
All
guys-
teams are good. It's the best teams in the world. We're here in America.
Right, Johnny, you think?
Best teams in the world are here.
They're all good?
That's what.
Well, we raised the American flag for you guys today.
Well,
It's
it's quite a historic day.
Looks nice out there, doesn't it? Beautiful. Even you agree, right? I think so. Do you agree? No. Most of you agree. So, do you have any questions, please?
Do you know the latest on the evacuations out of Israel, Mr. President? Have
No.
you been updated on that?
No, we're having a meeting in an hour. Have a meeting downstairs in 1 hour. Yeah.
Mr. President, on Iran, if regime change does happen there, if the regime falls, do you have a plan for what you think would happen
I have a
there?
plan for everything, but we'll see what happens. Got a ways to go. They should have made the deal. I had a great deal for them. They should have made that deal. 60 days we talked about it, and in the end they decided not to do it, and now they wish they did it. And they want to meet, but it's it's a little late to meet, but they want to meet, and they want to come to the White House. They'll even come to the White House. So we'll see. I may do that, but it's a shame it could have been done the easy way.
Do you think the regime there could fall?
Sure, anything could happen, right? Of that, sure, that could happen. Yeah,
Mr.
please.
President, the Senate Judiciary Committee is holding a hearing on who exactly was running the White House under Joe Biden. Who do you think that was?
I think the auto pen ran the White House. We have an auto pen president before me. I think it's one of the greatest scandals in the history of this country, one of the biggest scandals. He wasn't making a decision. He was never for open borders where people came in from all over the world, from prisons and gangs and drug dealers and all of that, the mentally insane. He was never for that. He was never for open borders, and he was never for, if you think, he was never for transgender for everybody, or men playing in women's sports. He was never for that. Have you ever had women? Could a woman make your team, fellas? Tell me. You think? You're being nice. What do you think? Think a woman could make the team? General managers, what do you think?
Difficult.
You don't say it. Close.
We have a very good women's team now.
We
You
won
do
the
have, right?
championship.
But they should be playing with women, right? It's one of those things. One of those things. See, they're very diplomatic.
As you're making your decision on Iran, obviously there's been a change from when you were pursuing a diplomatic negotiation.
Yeah.
Now you seem very open to the idea of potentially taking U.S. action. Obviously you're not going to tell us that. Can you walk us through what contributed to that change, how you got to where you are in making your decision now?
Well, I think it started the first night. I mean, that first night was devastating. And it really knocked the one side off, as you know. It was a devastating evening, day. And it's pretty much proceeded that way. I have a meeting in the war room in a little while. Situation room, as some people call it. So we're going to meet, we're going to see. We're in the midst of it's a terrible thing. I hate to see it. I hate to see all that death, so much death and destruction. But death primarily is what I hate to see.
Does that mean you haven't made a decision yet on what to do?
I have ideas as to what to do, but I haven't made a final. I like to make the final decision 1 second before it's due, because things change. I mean, especially with war. Things change with war. It can go from one extreme to the other. War is very bad. There was no reason for this to be a war. There was no reason for Russia, Ukraine. A lot of wars there was no reason for. You look right up there, I don't know, see the Declaration of Independence, and I say, I wonder if the Civil War, it always seemed to me maybe that could have been solved without losing 600,000 plus people. So a lot of, it's very sad to see. It's very sad to see what's happening. But with that being said, I would say right now, Israel, from the standpoint of winning a war, is doing pretty well. Yeah, please.
Mr. President, in your meeting today with the Chief of Staff of the Pakistani Army, did you talk about Iran? Did that come up? Is there
Yeah.
anything you can share from that
Yeah,
meeting?
well, they know Iran very well, better than most. And they're not happy about anything. It's not that they're bad with Israel. They know them both, actually, but they're probably, maybe they know Iran better. But they see what's going on, and he agreed with me. Reason I had him here, I wanted to thank him for not going into the war, just, ending the war. And I want to thank, as you know, Prime Minister Modi just left, just a little while ago, just left. And we're working a trade deal with India. We're working a trade deal with Pakistan. And they were both here. But I was with Modi a few weeks ago. He was here, actually. But now we speak to him. And I'm so happy. There was a deal that two smart people, plus, they have people on their staff too, but two very smart people decided not to keep going with that war. That could have been a nuclear war. Those are two nuclear powers, big ones, big nuclear powers, and they decided not. So I was honored to meet him today.
And if I can, Mr. sir, and for anyone who may want to answer, how has the travel bans from certain countries affected fans maybe coming in for the games, or is that not a consideration?
Johnny, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's not a concern for us. For the games now in the Club World Cup, everything has been done in a very smooth way. We have an excellent collaboration, of course, with the President, but with the task force in particular. For next year, the World Cup, we have one more year to work, and the learnings that we have this year with the Club World Cup, which is historic, I say this to all the Americans, because it's the first ever Club World Cup, and it's played in the United States of America. So the learnings we'll have for this will apply them next year.
And they're largely sold out, so
But
I don't know.
everything is great.
I don't think he's too worried about the travel ban. He doesn't know what the travel ban is, I don't think. Johnny, tell me what the travel ban is. He doesn't know what it is. He's largely sold out. Like tonight is totally. I've had friends, they heard about this meeting. They said, can you give me tickets? I don't know if I can get tickets. He won't give them to
Well,
me.
we can speak
Maybe
about it.
John will give them to me. Yeah, please.
Mr. President, two questions, if I could. One about Iran and then one domestically. With Iran, what's your message to Americans, both here and abroad, who are not only concerned about the U.S. potentially getting involved in another conflict in the Middle East, but worry about the potential for retaliation here at home?
Yeah, well, I don't want to get involved either, but I've been saying for 20 years, maybe longer, that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. I've been saying it for a long time. And I think they were a few weeks away from having one. And they had to sign a document. I think they wish they signed it now. It was a fair deal. And now it's a harder thing to sign, It's a lot of water over the dam. But, it's very, I say it very simply. Iran can't have a nuclear weapon. Too much devastation. And they'd use it, I believe they'd use it. Others won't use it, but I believe they'd use it. So that's it. It's very simple as far as I'm concerned. They can't have a nuclear weapon.
And then domestically, Missouri Senator Josh Hawley came out this week as the lead sponsor of the bill to raise the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour. It stands out because he's a Republican. There's still 20 states that have it at $7.25. Do you support the legislation or the idea?
Well, I haven't seen it. I'd have to speak to Josh. He's a very good friend of mine. That's interesting that Josh did that. I'm going to have to think about that one. Some people agree with it, some people don't. Some people say it really turns away business, restaurants close, and a lot of things happen. Other people agree. I'd have to speak to Josh. He's a good guy.
Mr. President.
For the Iran, the possibility of an Iran deal, is the destruction or the dismantling of the Fordow nuclear enrichment center, is that a prerequisite for a deal? Is that a red line for you?
No, it's just something that people talk about having. We're the only ones that have the capability to do it, but that doesn't mean I'm going to do it at all. Yeah, we have the best military equipment in the world. You see that with this fight. We have planes that are undetectable, flying around like, nobody's able to see them stealth. You guys want to be stealthy tonight. You can be stealthy, you'll never lose, right? But these are incredible planes and weapons. We have the best weapons in the world. By far, nobody close, and we're where, I mean, certain countries take advantage of that. Israel has incredible weaponry. So we'll see what happens. I've been asked about it by everybody, but I haven't made a decision.
Mr. President, you talked earlier today about having daily conversations with Prime Minister Netanyahu.
Yeah.
How have those conversations weighed on you in terms of getting more involved? He's been lobbying for the U.S. to get more involved. Has that had an impact in kind of your evolution, sir?
Look, we talk, and I'd like to see everything done. I would have preferred having just an agreement, a strong agreement, you know, verifiable agreement. But it was such a shame. They were so close. You know, Iran was very close to signing what would have been a very good agreement for them. And maybe that could still happen, I guess, you know. They do want to come and see us. They want to see me in the White House. That's a big statement. But it's very late.
Is it enough of a statement to hold off getting involved?
We're going to see what happens. Look, we're going to see what happens. Ending it as soon as you can would be good.
Have you closed the door on meeting with them?
No.
Okay, so it's still open to them coming here in your eyes?
I mean, they asked if they could come, and we'll see if that happens. It's not that easy for them to come. They can't get out. You know, they're in Iran, and in one case, the guy wanted to come so badly, but he can't get out because his bombs dropping all over the place.
Have you seen the Tucker Carlson Senator Ted Cruz interview? It seems like this issue on whether or not the United States should strike is kind of dividing a lot of your supporters.
No, my supporters are for me. My supporters are America first. They make America great again. My supporters don't want to see Iran have a nuclear weapon. Tucker's a nice guy. He called and apologized the other day because he thought he said things that were a little bit too strong, and I appreciated that. And Ted Cruz is with me for a long time. I'd say once the race was over, he's been with me ever since, right? But very simple. If they think that it's okay for Iran to have a nuclear weapon, then they should oppose me, but nobody thinks it's okay. People that don't want, I don't want to fight either. I'm not looking to fight. But if it's a choice between fighting and them having a nuclear weapon, you have to do what you have to do. Maybe we won't have to fight. Don't forget, we haven't been fighting. We add a certain amount of genius to everything, but we haven't been fighting at all. Israel's done a very good job of that. But we'll see what happens. The bottom line is they can't have nuclear. And if I can't imagine that Ted Cruz said it's okay for Iran to have nuclear, including Tucker. I don't think Tucker says it's okay. The problem is then they get themselves into a thing. They don't want them to have nuclear, but then they say, well, we don't want to fight. Well, you're going to have to make a choice because it's possible that you're going to have to fight for them not to have nuclear. And it's interesting because I did ask Tucker, I said, well, are you okay with nuclear weapons being in the hands of Iran? And he sort of didn't like that. He didn't want to really, but he sort of didn't like that. And I said, well, if it's okay with you, then you and I do have a difference. But it's really not okay with him. Therefore, you may have to fight, and maybe it'll end, and maybe it'll end very quickly. But there's no way that you can allow, whether you have to fight or not, you can allow Iran to have a nuclear weapon because the entire world will blow up. I'm not going to let that happen.
Mr. President, you had a bit of a row with President Emmanuel Macron of France the other day, the G7.
No,
it sounded like.
he's a nice guy. Look, he said I was going back home to make a ceasefire. Not a ceasefire. We're long beyond ceasefire. And I said, why do you say that? Why would you say ceasefire? It's a bad term to use. Because a ceasefire means like everything's going swimmingly, we'll take a little time off. It's not. We're not looking for a ceasefire. We're looking for a total, complete victory. Again, you know what the victory is. No nuclear weapon.
Mr. President?
So I thought it was a very badly worded statement by him, and obviously I let him know that.
On the southern border, you've had record low numbers for the month of May, 95 apprehensions, 0 releases, compared to that of the previous administration exactly a year ago, more than 60,000 releases. What do you attribute that success to?
I like you. Who are you with?
Turning Point USA, sir.
Well, they're very good. Turning Point. Charlie, very good. That's what I call a good question, fellas. 1 out of 10, John. 1 out of 10, but that's a really good question. No, we had record good numbers on the border. And people are coming in, but they have to come in legally. Like some of these guys behind me, they have to come in legally. And if they come in legally, we want them. They have to say they love America, they love our country. And if they can't say that, we don't want them. Thank you very much. Very nice. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, press.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
All right, another big discussion here in Charlotte. We'll bring it more local. We've spoken to a man who runs a drug recovery center at a former hotel in Northeast Charlotte, Cedric Dean, and this story really was highlighted because of a mother and a baby that were found dead at this hotel. It is a recovery program that is ongoing at this place. However, the program is going to be shut down, and the director of this program, Cedric Dean, who we spoke to and have been speaking to over the last couple of weeks about the situation, alleged in a press conference earlier today that there's some CMPD corruption, even calling for the chief of police to step down and step aside prior to his retiring later this year. So we want to go to this press conference today. A lot of things were said at this drug recovery center at this former hotel that is in Northeast Charlotte. So we'll discuss this after a little bit more about what's going on in the background, but we do want to hear from him, and so we'll take this press conference right now.
I want to thank y'all for being here today. Hey, hello. We at Cedric Dean Holdings Incorporated stand in united in our unwavering condemnation of CMPD and the systemic complicity that allows illegal activities to persist unchecked within I-85 and Sugar Creek. The integrity of our police department is paramount, and any breach of this trust undermines the very foundation of our society. Today we are here to condemn the CMPD leadership that ordered or condoned the false arrest of Cedric Dean and the non-arrest of the fentanyl dealers and violent offenders that have terrorized the Baymont for years. Such actions represent a grave violation of the rights of citizens and undermines the principles of justice and public trust that law enforcement agencies are sworn to uphold. The false arrest of Cedric Dean was a serious form of police misconduct as it motivated the fentanyl dealers to plan a manufactured criminal indictment against Cedric Dean. When this weaponization of law enforcement is orchestrated or sanctioned, directly or indirectly, by those in positions of authority within CMPD, it raises profound concerns about abuse of power and systemic issues within the force. Montarius Brown was assaulted in the Baymont. 2 days ago, we presented the video of the assault to CMPD. The police covered it up. Can't cover up them black eyes on him right now. That can't be covered. But his life didn't matter to the police department. It didn't matter enough to investigate. It didn't matter enough to take somebody to jail for assaulting. But you took me to jail for trying to save children. Montarius is here today and we stand with him. The time for complacency has passed. We call upon Chief Johnny Jennings to resign today, not in December. We call on Chief Johnny Jennings to resign today, or the city manager to fire him. Sugar Creek, this corridor right here, for too long, have been a haven for human trafficking, for drugs, for crimes, and we can't blame the people. These people are affected by drug habits. We have to blame CMPD for not giving them the environment that's therapeutic enough. It is imperative that the Charlotte City Manager, City Council, and Mayor take decisive action against police corruption and enabling of illegal activities. We had 3 people die here. A child, her mother, and we had another man with a drug overdose. That's just in the short time we've been here, less than a month. Not one police car out here in the parking lot. Not one. We done begged them, asked them to come out here and help us, but they refused. We told them we even know the people that possibly sold them the drugs, they refused to even investigate. These are facts. So we stand today in solidarity for the victims of fentanyl overdoses throughout the city of Charlotte. And we ask for a thorough investigation into police corruption and the enabling of illegal activities. It is imperative that those responsible, including any individuals in leadership positions, starting with Chief Jennings, be held accountable for their actions. Now, I'm gonna tell you right now, this is the only public trial that these people will get. We talk about them like they're not even human beings. They were set up for failure from the beginning. You have right here a text message that I gave each one of you from Greg Jackson. And Greg Jackson says that there is a no contact room. So how is it that I am over this facility? I ain't put no contact room in it. No, that came from Greg Jackson and the leadership of CMPD. They the ones that violated my rights as a business owner to be able to provide community behavioral health. Now, let's look right here at Hopeway, a white company that does the same thing. Hopeway. If you look at their policy, they have a contraband policy where contraband items included but not limited to tobacco products, lighters, matches, weapons of any kind, illicit drugs and narcotics, or other needles. I don't have to keep reading. They even say right here, personal searches to identify contraband, health hazards, and safety concerns may be conducted on your clothing or personal possessions based upon reasonable cause. Now, I get everybody in here to sign a document authorizing us to be able to conduct searches, to be able to discharge them from our treatment program. This is not a residential housing program. Medicaid don't pay for housing. Medicaid pays for medically necessity. And when you talk about this facility right here, it's just like going to Atrium Health. You can't sit there and tell the people that they can't go into the room or discharge somebody when it's no longer medically necessary. You wouldn't have somebody at Atrium Health with a gun and the police is negotiating, literally negotiating for me to pay the person $400 to leave. When I pay them $400, the police turn around and arrest them saying, you had warrants. This is legalized extortion. And this is the stuff that's going on under Chief Jennings' administration. When these people, when we came to this hotel, there was 46 families here. Hill Charlotte and the city of Charlotte abandoned 46 families. They were already here when we touched down. We gave them an opportunity to be a part of the program, but they had kids running around with guns on the premises, with drugs on the premises, with people, human trafficking, all this stuff going on, especially on this 3rd floor. So I tell them, hey, we gotta get all the kids off the 3rd floor. So I'm knocking on the door with Miss Mickey and John and our staff, knocking on the door saying, we gotta get these kids off here. You know what happened? The young lady following Greg Jackson's directive called the police on me. So the police come and tell me that I have no right, I have no authority to tell these people that they can't be on this third floor with kids where all this criminal activity is going on up here. Where people are being assaulted, where it's blind spots. But guess what though? Let's talk truth today. The city of Charlotte.
That's right, Ted.
The city of Charlotte. Stop me. I would have been at room 331 when we found the person dead with the child. I could have found them 3 weeks earlier. 3 weeks earlier, I could have found them. I was going room by room. But they told me, no, you can't do this. And then you know what they rewarded me with? They rewarded me with criminal charges. But the crime is against CMPD. Chief Jennings is the one that committed the crime because the buck stops from him. He had an obligation, the city of Charlotte had an obligation to the well-being of the 46 families that they paid to put here. They paid to put them here. Then they told the public, we're not going to charge. But I have people here right now, and you will be able to talk to them, that will tell you that was a lie. That the city was charged, they was charging $750 here in Charlotte, and they told them $750 went straight to Greg Jackson. Some on Cash App. Where was the city at when these people needed it the most? When it was time for them to be transitioned because they said, we're not going to give you no more money, Greg Jackson. No, they left them, they abandoned them, and then they put me in jail. They put me in jail. But they refused to put the people in jail that threatened. Let me see that picture. The ones that said, and I'm going to let a young lady come up here so you don't have to take it from me, that said that room 314 taking over the hotel. It's a few more rooms. I am listening to the talk. The idea is to get rid of Cedric and take over the hotel with dope money. This is what CMPD is fostering. This type of culture. But who gonna hold them accountable? Who gonna hold them accountable, lady? Please come forward. This is my childhood friend. She lived in my community growing up. She said, you know what? I gotta tell Cedric this. I don't want to see him go back to prison. They talking about how they gonna come together and start a federal indictment on him. How they gonna plant the drugs they selling in there and say I'm selling. And you know what? The police, the FBI would rather hear a lie than the truth. But today, y'all get a chance and the public get a chance to hear the truth. Please tell them what you heard.
Yes, I was talking to Blue in his screens, and they were saying that they had planned to get set out the way so they can run this hotel with drugs. And I'm like, how you gonna pay for it? Because saying it's the backbone of these programs. So how's you gonna pay for it? And they just lied. And he ended up, I was so glad he ended up the other day when they took him right to jail. Because that's what their plan was. To set him up, to put drugs in this facility and set it up so he can go back to jail.
Now let me explain when she said Blue. That was a person that had a gun. And I called the police and I said, you're not allowed to have guns on this premises. You know what they told me? Y'all can get the video footage. They say if we go through all these rooms up here, we probably find a whole lot of guns. I said, but that's your job, that's what you're supposed to do if you want to keep this place safe. But they negotiated for me to pay a man with a gun that had a warrant, $400 to leave, to go to jail. This is the games that they play. And then, when I find out about the credible threat against my safety, against my staff, this young lady went to crime division, and she gonna tell you exactly what the police told her.
Hi, how are you doing? My name is Samika Mitchell, and I'm the housing director here for Senator Holder. Friday, June 13th, we went to the police department right over here on North Tryon that was over this precinct. We stated to them that we had an individual that came to us who OD'd about 3 days ago. They had to, inject the Narcan so they could come back to life. He wanted to quit getting high, and his fiance came to me and said, well, Mika, how can we stop getting high if we have people in the hotel that are selling drugs and keep trying to get us to buy them? So I stated, okay, well, I'll do something about it. I'm going to go talk to the police about it. So we went to the police department, we talked to the police about it. We told them that the individuals were selling fentanyl and that somebody had already OD'd in this hotel a week prior to us finding the woman and the child here. We asked them could they come out and, just help us patrol the area to keep the crime down. We asked could they bring police cars and set up in the parking lot. They stated that we needed to call the vice line. I have it on my phone. I have numerous phone calls from my phone. I have called the vice every day this week. I have not received one phone call back from the vice department yet. We talked to the police out there for at least about 30, 45 minutes, asking them different ways we can do it. Well, we searched them, we found the drugs. Could they come and get it? They said no, there's nothing there they can do. So, I said, well, what about the bodies that can keep dropping off the fentanyl? They're saying that there's people in our building that has fentanyl and we need y'all to help us. They told us they couldn't help us. We had to contact the narcotics department. That is what they said. On their body cams, we asked them so many different scenarios. Could the person go in and do a drug buy? And they could maybe come in. It was like, oh, we can't lock them up. We have to get the charge the right way. So in other words, I said, so you got to sit here and put other people dying on us? That's what it was.
So, my aunt, every day, for 18 years, she was getting high, smoking crack, doing all kind of drugs. For the last 18 years, she has been clean and sober. We lost our uncle, my uncle, her brother. We lost him to drugs, to fentanyl. That's how this program started. Everybody here knows that. So I said, I like the program that you did over there at Hope Haven. I'm gonna get a hotel for us to do the same thing. Now she's gonna tell you what they let them do at Hope Haven that they don't let us do here.
Hello, I'm Priscilla Daddy. I am the group leader of the HELP program, which is ran by Cedric Dean. I've been with Cedric Dean since January the 21st when we started the HELP program over at the center. But we came here as of May 5th. We've been in this facility. I have seen that the disciplinary system here is not working for us. When I worked for Hope Haven, we had disciplinary where it was a curfew. You could be put out if you didn't make curfew. Here we can put you out. Then also, if people had drugs there, you was automatic discharge. If you had any type of weapon, any type of drugs, pills, you would be discharged. But here, the police department is not letting us do our job. That is not allowing us to put these people out, and we have to keep them here, and we have to evict them, which takes 30 days. So they're not doing us no justice. In 30 days, we can lose souls here. We can have people dying. We can have the fentanyl around here for 30 days. We will have more deaths. So we feel like that we don't have no justice here. So Mr. Dean feel like there's nothing else for him to do but to shake the program down. Thank you.
So, I'm gonna wrap this up by saying today, forget that you're a reporter. Just think about being a human being. Think about humanity. Think about the lives of every last one of these individuals who CMPD, the city of Charlotte, is trying to send back the ticks. Trying to send back back to sleep up on the bridge. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. There is a common theme amongst the police department. The more crime, the more job security I got. Every last one of these hotels right here, we know what go on in them. Human trafficking, we know what go on in them. The gangs that took over. The police department, they can put a police car in every last one of these parking lots and stop it. But they don't want to stop it. They want to stop me. They want to put me back in prison. They want to create a fake federal or state indictment for Cedric Dean. They want to ruin my reputation. But let me tell you something, Johnny Dennis. You think Tariq on city council offended you, and you felt that it was taxpayers' responsibility to pay you $300,000? How about you offending all these people right here?
Yeah.
By refusing to protect you. Yeah. You need to go to jail. Yeah. Every last one of these human beings are offended by you, Johnny Jennings. That's what you have done. And I'm gonna tell you something right now. Code enforcement, City of Charlotte, you're gonna be putting me back in jail because I ain't got about 10 houses. That's what I got, about 10. And we gonna go and we gonna make do and squeeze in them and do whatever else we gotta do. But we ain't gonna be here for people to die on fentanyl. We're not gonna be here for people to get shot, to not have the police to get jumped and beat up. So go ahead. Y'all will see it. Y'all will be there reporting it. Cedric Dean get locked up for code enforcement violations for having too many people in the house. Well, where you want them to go? Are they safe under a bridge? Are they safe in a tent?
That's right.
It's time to stop playing games, man. We got 2 Charlottes. We're in the 2nd largest banking community in the world. The banks have all this real estate owned property that can put every last person in here in the house. Today. Yeah. Amen. Malcolm Brown want to be mayor. Smudgy Mitchell want to be mayor. They ain't been out here to see on these people. They ain't been out here to check on these people. But they the ones that was advocating for Greg Jackson. They the ones that's running around lying and smearing the name of Cedric Dean. Saying the city of Charlotte is not responsible for these people. How you not responsible for these people when they are citizens and residents of Charlotte? Every time they go in the store, they pay money. They pay taxes. So how you not responsible for them? So it's on your hands. Smudgy Mitchell, you'll never be mayor. Malcolm Brown, you'll never be mayor. It's time to stop playing with these people's lives. So we asking you today, don't talk to me. Talk to these people right here. Let them have their voice heard today.
If it weren't for Mr. Dean, we don't know where we would be. This man helps all of us. Anything we want, we don't have to want for nothing. He give us everything we need. This here help is for healing, E is for empowerment, L is for love, P is for protection. That's what he gives us. All of us. And we love him. Y'all leave him alone.
So I have a young lady from the program. She's going to close it out with a poem, and then we'll take whatever questions that you have. Where's she at? She wrote a poem. She said, I got a poem I want to share, but I'm saying, let's not make this about politics. Let's make this about people. Go ahead. It's Stephanie Baumgart.
Hey everybody, my name is Stephanie Baumgart. I moved here June the 5th. June the 5th. I have a poem about addiction. This man's addiction. Pain is within for every hit I take. For every single scar I make, there's a struggle within. No matter what I do, the harder I try, My love for the drug is my addiction. Even though my pain is my scars within, every day I struggle to overcome my addiction. Day by day, one day at a time, explains the pain I hide. As I fall, I rise up day by day, for the addiction only kills as the pain I hide. It's the drug that kills, for the addiction is only a one-way trip. In the end, addiction is a trip that never ends. Even though I'm an addict, I have fallen, I have risen. The addiction will never win. Always remember, one day at a time, we will overcome the addiction within.
Yes!
And that right there, that poem is inspired by my being here. I've been clean and sober for 4 years, August 12th, of fentanyl. I've been clean for 16 years off crack. And I believe if you put forth an effort and do what you got to do and overcome them battles, you just do it one day at a time. You can manage, you can do it. It's going to be hard, but you can do it. I'm living proof of it. And thank you for Mr. Cedric here for giving us a chance. We were in the tent. We had nowhere to go at all. No food, no nothing. This man, I called him up. I was having trouble fixing my insurance over here. He said, you know what? Just come on up. We'll figure it out. And we did that. And he has given us a chance, and I really appreciate this man. He does what he can do. And he's out here helping people, and people are against him, and that's not right. This man here is a life-saving man. That's right. And I don't appreciate all the drugs, all the planting and shit stuff, excuse my French, that's being put on him when he's the one that's trying to give everybody a chance. You know what I mean? If it wasn't for him, I'd probably be dead right now. Yeah. Honest to God, I would. I would. And I appreciate everything he's doing. All these people here are here for a reason. We have a problem. We are trying to overcome our addiction. Y'all have to give us a chance. Nobody will give you a chance. And that's all we're asking for is a chance. You know, that's all. But thank you. I appreciate it. Y'all have a blessed day.
Yes!
The goal for individuals, human beings like Stephanie, was, see that car over there? The police don't like it. I went to the auction and I bought police cars, 8 of them. And I said, formerly incarcerated people who want to make amends for their sins will be given the opportunity to allow to take people to get help instead of going to jail. Right. Wow. So we pull up in our help patrol cars and we say, hey, you want to go to a place to stay? You want to get off drugs? You want to be safe? And we put them in the car and we take them to get help. So with that being said, we'll take any questions you may have.
Yesterday, when we got information that you were holding this event, it was stated that you were going to have to end the program, basically put everything out. Is that, you haven't touched on that, you detailed kind of the backstory, but is that happening, and if so, when?
Well, I'm going to be clear. I never said put nobody out. Right. Okay. I said that I would be shutting down operations and transferring the operations to the house. See, we all come from houses. Okay. I had about 10 houses that I had everybody in. So it started getting crowded for us. We in corners. I even got 2 houses in Shelby. So we in there, and when I heard that they were shutting down here in Charlotte, I said, well, let me see if there's an opportunity for us to go over there so we not as crowded. And that's how we got here. So those houses are still available, and we moved. Oh, I forgot. I'm glad you said that. So we moved the people that had kids with ill Charlotte that didn't want to take the money, we put them in the house, right? That we going back to. So we gonna bring them people back from the houses to where they was at. And let the city of Charlotte, that was over that Heal Charlotte program, do whatever they doing to us. See, they told us we can't put them out. They told us that they don't have to join our program. So they been staying over there at my properties for free. I ain't getting paid on them. Ain't on nothing, they not enrolled in my program. So they staying there for free. So they're coming back over here where they was at when we bought this place, when we started leasing here. It was 46 rooms. They coming back in the rooms that they was in. And these people here are going to the houses that we have.
Cedric, can you, now that you bring up kind of the pieces of the transition between your program or Heal Charlotte and your program, can you detail for me, was there, now that you look back on it, did the transition not go as planned? How did things work out between talking with Greg and then you all taking over or the 46 rooms? Like, how did all that come about?
Breaking news. Greg had owed the former property owner over $300,000. The property owner had defaulted on Greg's loan, so they was dead. So that was already, Greg wasn't even answering his phone calls. So it was no communication. There was no warm handoff on, here you go, Cedric, here's a list of my family, here's their contact. No, it was the city ended the program. You see his press release, didn't you? The city ended his program, and he completed his mission or whatever. But the people that's still in this program, some of them here right now, they didn't get case management services. They didn't get none of those services. They got an opportunity for Cedric Dean, and I paid over $30,000. I gave $1,000 to each family that wanted to go to accommodate them. The city ain't paid that. Greg Jackson ain't paid that. I was left with that problem.
So you were trying to relocate the Hill Charlotte folks so that you could get your treatment program residents in here?
No, we was already here. There was 46 rooms that we couldn't occupy. They tricked me into saying, oh, these people would qualify for your program. They'll be perfect for your program. They didn't tell me they had a bunch of kids running around here. When I got over here, it was little kids, like 5, 6 years old, running around in the street and stuff. I literally went crazy. That's why I was going room to room. I'm like, man, these kids can't be doing this. Because one of these kids died, we'll be having a different press conference. So it was Greg Jackson. Where is he at? I mean, is that a fair question? Where is Greg? You know another fair question? How did Greg Jackson even get $2.5 million? You know how? CMPD. He was their poster child. He ran around for CMPD. They advocated, they fought for him, and then they protected him when he left. That's who gave them the no-knock policy. CMPD. That's who tried to get Cedric Dean arrested. That's who told, man, just call the police on him, make him evict you. But I ain't filed one eviction notice. I gave money out of my own pocket. But I'm the villain, me. So I think I'll be going to the city council like Chief Jennings did when he felt offended. Because I feel offended. I think I'm entitled to something, all this money I done paid, trying to do the right thing, trying to take the high road, but I'm the only one on the high road. There's no other questions. The residents, they choose on their Because every last one of them is here on their own accord. They are here so that their voice can be heard. Because this is a serious thing. And ain't nobody out here trying to go back to a 10. So think about it now. Think about it. We got these houses. We got these beds. They say Jesus fed 5,000 with 5 loaves of bread. Well, I got 10 houses for all these people to go in, and I guess I'll be going to jail for that. You know? But I'd rather go to jail for that than for reckless endangerment to these people's lives.
That's right, yeah.
All right, this concludes the press conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, so I can assure you this is not the last we will hear from both Cedric Dean, and we're still waiting for comment from CMPD on his allegations, but I'm sure that, like I said, this situation is not going anywhere, and those families are still going to need the help. It does sound like HELP, the nonprofit that Mr. Dean runs, will continue to provide services outside of the hotel, so I'm not sure what that looks like in terms of capacity, but I'm sure we'll be updating the story, and hopefully he could join us maybe on WCNC Plus to talk about that, or we'll make sure to follow up with him with one of our reporters here. We have seen and obviously heard the president talk about rates being cut and how he believes that might help our economy and people that are really struggling right now this summer. But Fed Chair Jerome Powell decided to hold rates where they're at, citing the unshaky economy and folks and how they feel really about the economy in and of itself, and then tariffs that are at play as well. So let's listen in to the comments that he had earlier today and why they are not lowering rates.
Good afternoon. My colleagues and I remain squarely focused on achieving our dual mandate goals of maximum employment and stable prices for the benefit of the American people. Despite elevated uncertainty, the economy is in a solid position. The unemployment rate remains low, and the labor market is at or near maximum employment. Inflation has come down a great deal, but has been running somewhat above our 2% longer-run objective. In support of our goals, today the Federal Open Market Committee decided to leave our policy interest rate unchanged. We believe that the current stance of monetary policy leaves us well positioned to respond in a timely way to potential economic developments. I'll have more to say about monetary policy after briefly reviewing economic developments. Following growth of 2.5% last year, GDP was reported to have edged down in the first quarter, reflecting swings in net exports that were driven by businesses bringing in imports ahead of potential tariffs. This unusual swing has complicated GDP measurement. Private domestic final purchases, or PDFP, as we call them, which excludes net exports, inventory investment, and government spending, grew at a solid 2.5% rate. Within PDFP, growth of consumer spending moderated, while investment in equipment and intangibles rebounded from weakness in the fourth quarter. Surveys of households and businesses, however, report a decline in sentiment over recent months and elevated uncertainty about the economic outlook, largely reflecting trade policy concerns. It remains to be seen how these developments might affect future spending and investment. In our summary of economic projections, the median participant projects GDP to rise 1.4% this year and 1.6% next year, somewhat slower than projected in March. In the labor market, conditions have remained solid. Payroll job gains averaged 135,000 per month over the past 3 months. The unemployment rate, at 4.2%, remains low and has stayed in a narrow range for the past year. Wage growth has continued to moderate while still outpacing inflation. Overall, a wide set of indicators suggests that conditions in the labor market are broadly in balance and consistent with maximum employment. The labor market is not a source of significant inflationary pressures. The median projection for the unemployment rate in the SEP is 4.5% at the end of this year and next, a bit higher than projected in March. Inflation has eased significantly from its highs in mid-2022 and somewhat elevated relative to our 2% longer-run goal. Estimates based on the Consumer Price Index and other data indicate that total PCE prices rose 2.3% over the 12 months ending in May, and that, excluding the volatile food and energy categories, core PCE prices rose 2.6%. Near-term measures of inflation expectations have moved up over recent months, as reflected in both market and survey-based measures. Respondents to surveys of consumers, businesses, and professional forecasters point to tariffs as the driving factor. Beyond the next year or so, however, most measures of longer-term expectations remain consistent with our 2% inflation goal. The median projection in the SEP for total PCE inflation this year is 3%, somewhat higher than projected in March. The median inflation projection falls to 2.4% in 2026 and 2.1% in 2027. Our monetary policy actions are guided by our dual mandate to promote maximum employment and stable prices for the American people. At today's meeting, the committee decided to maintain the target range for the federal funds rate at 4.25% to 4.5% and to continue reducing the size of our balance sheet. We will continue to determine the appropriate stance of monetary policy based on the incoming data, the evolving outlook, and the balance of risks. Changes to trade, immigration, fiscal, and regulatory policies continue to evolve, and their effects on the economy remain uncertain. The effects of tariffs will depend, among other things, on their ultimate level. Expectations of that level, and thus of the related economic effects, reached a peak in April and have since declined. Even so, increases in tariffs this year are likely to push up prices and weigh on economic activity. The effects on inflation could be short-lived, reflecting a one-time shift in the price level. It's also possible that the inflationary effects could instead be more persistent. Avoiding that outcome will depend on the size of the tariff effects, on how long it takes for them to pass through fully into prices, and ultimately on keeping longer-term inflation expectations well anchored. Our obligation is to keep longer-term inflation expectations well anchored and to prevent a one-time increase in the price level from becoming an ongoing inflation problem. As we act to meet that obligation, we will balance our maximum employment and price stability mandates, keeping in mind that without price stability, we cannot achieve the long periods of strong labor market conditions that benefit all Americans. We may find ourselves in the challenging scenario in which our dual mandate goals are in tension. If that were to occur, we would consider how far the economy is from each goal and the potentially different time horizons over which those respective gaps would be anticipated to close. For the time being, we are well positioned to wait to learn more about the likely course of the economy before considering any adjustments to our policy stance. In our SEP, FOMC participants wrote down their individual assessments of an appropriate path for the federal funds rate based on what each participant judges to be the most likely scenario going forward. The median participant projects that the appropriate level of the federal funds rate will be 3.9% at the end of this year, the same as projected in March. The median projection declines to 3.6% at the end of next year and to 3.4% at the end of 2027, a little higher than the March projection. These individual forecasts are always subject to uncertainty, and as I've noted, uncertainty is unusually elevated. And of course, these projections are not a committee plan or decision. At this meeting, the committee continued its discussions as part of our 5-year review of our monetary policy framework. We focused on issues related to assessing the risks and uncertainties that are relevant for monetary policy and the potential implications for policy, strategy, and communications. Our review includes outreach and public events involving a wide range of parties, including Fed Listens events around the country and a research conference that we held last month. We are open to new ideas and critical feedback, and we will take on board lessons of the last 5 years in determining our findings. We intend to wrap up any modifications to our statement on longer-run goals and monetary policy strategy by late summer. After that, we will consider enhancements to our suite of communications tools, including the SEP. The Fed has been assigned 2 goals for monetary policy: maximum employment and stable prices. We remain committed to supporting maximum employment, bringing inflation sustainably to our 2% goal, and keeping longer-term inflation expectations well anchored. Our success in delivering on these goals matters to all Americans. We understand that our actions affect communities, families, and businesses across the country. Everything we do is in service to our public mission, and we at the Fed will do everything we can to achieve our maximum employment and price stability goals. Thank you. I look forward to your questions.
Colby. Thank you. Colby Smith with the New York Times. To what extent has the more limited impact from tariffs at this stage on inflation changed your view on what the ultimate economic fallout will be from these policies and the timing of when they will materialize in the data?
So we've had 3 months of favorable inflation readings since the high readings of January and February, and that's, of course, highly welcome news. Part of that just is that services, core services, both housing services and non-housing services, have really been grinding down toward levels that are consistent with 2% inflation. So that's the good news. We've had goods inflation just moving up a bit, and of course we expect, as you point out, we do expect to see more of that over the course of the summer. It takes some time for tariffs to work their way through the chain of distribution to the end consumer. A good example of that would be goods being sold at retailers today may have been imported several months ago before tariffs were imposed. So we're beginning to see some effects, and we do expect to see more of them over coming months. We do also see price increases in some of the relevant categories like personal computers and audiovisual equipment and things like that that are attributable to tariff increases. In addition, we look at surveys of businesses, and there are many of those, and you do see a range of things, but many companies do expect to put all or some or all of the effect of tariffs through to the next person in the chain, and ultimately to the consumer. Today, the amount of the amount of the tariff effects, the size of the tariff effects, their duration and the time it will take are all highly uncertain. So that is why we think the appropriate thing to do is to hold where we are as we learn more, and we think our policy stance is in a good place where we're well positioned to react to incoming developments.
So in terms of how we should interpret the rate cuts penciled into the SEP, is this reflecting that there's this expectation that underlying inflation will just stay well enough contained that allows the committee to eventually move ahead with those cuts? Or is it about responding to a deterioration in economic activity, let's say? I mean, how should we make sense of the forecast?
So if you look at the forecast, you will see that people do generally expect inflation to move up and then to come back down. But we can't just assume that. Of course, we don't know that. And, our job is to make sure, one of our jobs is to make sure that a one-time increase in inflation doesn't turn into an inflation problem. And that, again, that will depend on the size of the effects, how long it takes for them to come in, and ultimately on keeping inflation expectations anchored.
Hi, and thanks, Chairperson Howard Schneider with Reuters. If you look at the rate path starting in December to today and adjusted over the full time horizon you've got there, you've taken about a quarter point per year out of your projected path, and you end at a higher rate at end 2027 than you would have in the prior forecast. Is that a result of a sense that tariffs will lead to more persistent inflation? Is it a result of reassessments of where your short-term neutral rate is? Why are you on a slower path now?
So I would focus most on the nearer term. As you get out to the later years, it's hard for anybody to know where the economy is going. You didn't see people moving their longer term, estimate of the neutral rate, for example, at this meeting. So and those things are probably slow moving. So I think if you look at what's happening here since March, this is since March, right? You see a little slower growth, just a tiny tick up, a 1/10 tick up in unemployment, and you see inflation moving up 0.3. And by the way, it was a similar move from the December SEP to the March. So that's what you see. You see the effects of tariffs. I think we learned in April, after the March meeting, that substantially higher tariffs were likely. And then since then, the estimates of where the tariffs will be have actually moved back down, although still at an elevated level. So we're adapting in real time. And what you see is an accumulation of individual assessments.
But you say in the statement that risks have diminished on that front, but the July 9th, drop-dead date for all the Liberation Day tariffs is still out there and unresolved. You've got now exchange of missiles between two Middle East adversaries with a possible U.S. involvement. How can you justify saying that risks have diminished?
So what we said was that uncertainty uncertainty about the economic outlook has diminished but remains elevated. Many surveys say that. They do. So, and that's actually a line from the Teal book, which you can see in 5 years. Remember to check that.
Maybe the war will be over.
No, but if you think about it, tariff uncertainty really peaked in April, and since then has come down. And that's really what that's just acknowledging. It's diminished, but still elevated. That it's uncertainty. So I think that's an accurate statement.
Chris Rugaber.
Thank you. Chris Rugaber at Associated Press. There is an argument out there in favor of cutting rates more immediately. Inflation has continued to cool and is back to roughly 2% despite the tariffs. And I guess I also wanted to ask about, cracks in the job market with gross hiring slowing, concentrated in just a few industries. We've seen some housing data, including this morning, that has been pretty weak. Do you see any concerns that, the economy is weakening and that is a reason to cut rates going forward?
So we do of course monitor all those things. I think if you look at the overall picture, what you're seeing is 4.2% unemployment and an economy that's growing at a rate hard to know given the unusual flows in the first quarter, but it appears to be 1.5%, 2%, maybe a little better than that. Sentiment has come up off of its very low levels. It's still depressed. So you can point to things. The housing market is a longer run problem and also a short run problem. I don't think it's indicative of, basically the situation is we have a longer run shortage of housing, and we also have high rates right now. I think the best thing we can do for the housing market is to restore price stability in a sustainable way and create a strong labor market, and that's the best thing we can do for the housing market. You asked about the job market. Again, look at labor force participation, look at wages, look at job creation. They're all at healthy levels now. I would say you can see perhaps a very slow continued cooling, but nothing that's troubling at this time. But we watch it very carefully. So overall, again, the current stance of monetary policy leaves us well positioned to respond in a timely way to economic developments, and for now, and we'll be watching the data carefully.
Well, just quickly on, given that there are concerns inflation will rise, but there is the alternate scenario that tariffs would create demand destruction and slow growth sufficiently, and that would perhaps keep a bit of a lid on inflation. Do you see odds of that scenario? What kind of odds do you see of that scenario coming true, and how many months of cool inflation would you need to see before concluding that maybe that lower inflation scenario is taking place?
So this is very much the conversation we had today and yesterday. There are many different scenarios, many combinations of scenarios where inflation does or doesn't prove out to be at the levels we think, and where the labor market does or doesn't soften. And I think what you see people doing is looking ahead at a time of very high uncertainty and writing down what they think the most likely case is. No one holds these rate paths with a great deal of conviction, and everyone would agree that they're all going to be data dependent, and that you can make a case for any of the rate paths that you see in the SEP. And we do this once a quarter. It's a hard thing to do particularly at this time, but it does reflect. If you see somebody writing down a rate path that involves cuts, that's them saying, yes, I think we will get to a place, more likely than not, where cuts will be appropriate. And it could be a joint probability of a number of possible outcomes. Again, remember how much uncertainty we face, though.
Steve.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, I wonder if you could describe for us some of those scenarios. How do you get to a place? I'm noticing that the uncertainty levels in your forecast are very high. How do you get to a place where you have the confidence in the outlook for, say, inflation and or growth or the unemployment rate? How many months does it take, and what do you want to see in the data to get to that level of confidence to actually reduce rates off the restrictive level?
So it's very, very hard to say when that will happen. We know that the time will come. It could come quickly. It could not come quickly. As long as the economy is solid, though, as long as we're seeing the kind of labor market that we have and reasonably decent growth and inflation moving down, we feel like the right thing to do is to be where we are, where our policy stance is, and just learn more. And in particular, we feel like we're going to learn a great deal more over the summer on tariffs. We hadn't expected them to show up much by now, and they haven't. And we will see whether, to the extent to which they do over coming months. And I think that's going to inform our thinking, for one thing. In addition, we'll see how the labor market progresses. So at some point, it will become clear. I can't tell you exactly when that will be. And meanwhile, we'll be watching the labor market very carefully for signs of weakness and strength, and tariffs for signs of what's going to happen there. And of course, there are many developments ahead. Even in the near term, developments are expected on tariffs. So I think we don't yet know with any confidence where they will settle out. We have an estimate, and it's I think all estimates are now pretty close together, but it's again highly uncertain.
When you say estimate of the impact of tariffs on the core PCE, is that what it is? And could you share that?
What you start with is what's the effective tariff rate overall, and people are managing to that. But the pass-through of tariffs to consumer price inflation is a whole process that's very uncertain. As you know, there are many parties in that chain. There's the manufacturer, the exporter, the importer, the retailer, and the consumer. And each one of those is going to be trying not to be the one to pay for.
All right, we're going to cut in here. We have some severe storms making an impact right now in the midwestern portion of the United States. We're going to go right now as they are looking at issues near Indiana, Ohio as well, in the upper regions of the United States. We'll let the weather impact team on WBNS take over.
Is beginning to get kind of fold into the general structure of the storm. We're going to stay on 10 TV for 4 more minutes until this warning technically expires. But then join us on 10 TV Plus as we continue our coverage on 10 TV Plus on your connected televisions.
All right, having a little bit of issue there trying to get some of our
text us, I should say,
I guess,
and
sound
join us on Facebook
on here on
10 TV.
WCNC
Give us
Plus.
some questions and comments.
But we do know, like I said, severe storms are rumbling through. So we are watching these storms as they are in the middle of the United States, and they are making sure that individuals here at WBNS in their coverage area are staying safe, watching, obviously, the weather impacts and letting folks know as soon as possible on what those impacts look like. Again, WBNS talking about this storm chance, which is isolated, it looks like. But very interesting to watch a different segment of the United States dealing with some of the weather that we could obviously see impact our area in the coming days. And obviously we know we've been talking about the heat building over the eastern portion of the United States, the heat dome that we are also seeing, which is not going anywhere in the next couple of days. And in fact, it seems like things will build even more by next week. So we want to make sure that we bring you these updates. And it looks like there's a tornado warning even right now up until 8:15. So in about 2 minutes, this will expire potentially. This is in Crawford County, Ohio. So we're going to go back to WBNS as they are on the air right now.
And down near Ashley and Marengo, this line is about 10 to 15 miles wide. So it means it's moving through at about 30 to 60 minutes. Ahead of that, you've got time to prepare. Behind that, you can breathe a sigh of relief as the severe weather threat continues to move off toward the east. Delaware right now, downtown Delaware, you're almost in the clear. Powell, you're feeling and looking a lot better. Sunbury and Galena, you're going to get the brunt of the storm right now. Westerville under the gun from this particular cell from that severe thunderstorm warning. Further off toward the south, just about to cross into downtown. Aaron had showed that tower camera earlier. It's almost looked pitch black over downtown Columbus in many spots because of those low clouds and those thunderstorms moving in. New Albany, Gahanna, Groveport, Pickerington, and Pataskala. Got about 15 or 20 minutes before that cell moves in. So you still have a chance carefully and quickly to get out there and kind of assemble and tie down the lawn furniture or get any loose objects out there. And here's a look at the camera shot. Don't know exactly which direction it's heading. If I can take a closer look at that, those low clouds almost kind of scraping the tops of our tower camera, which is less than 1,000 feet in elevation. That's just really looking at some significantly severe weather. I think it's toward campus, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so that would show 315 and then the Olentangy River there, and then campus as these storms come right overhead and moving in. So
if we can take a weather 2 full as well.
Sure.
I have another camera pulled up that we can look at. This is looking towards downtown, looking towards the north and west, and you can see a lot of those lower clouds, but kind of an ominous sight moving over the city.
So interesting, Aaron. So we're going to go off of 10 TV right now for the moment. It's about 8:15. That tornado warning has ended, but we're going to continue our coverage on 10 TV Plus. So we appreciate you joining us on this Wednesday evening on 10 TV Plus. We broke into live coverage on 10 TV, Aaron, because of that tornado warning. And it's not luck. We wish we didn't have to do it, quite frankly. This is a great platform on 10 TV Plus to have a conversation with our audience and kind of keep them ahead of the storm. We've been watching and talking about that. So let's just look at that picture over downtown Columbus as that storm kind of scrapes the buildings in downtown as it moves off toward the east.
Yeah, I mean, just kind of creating a really ominous sight there. You can see what we call scud clouds. Just kind of, they look scary looking clouds. They look scary. They're not going to do anything, but still, it just kind of creates that ominous picture when you see those clouds moving over the city. But what they do indicate, at least those clouds where they're kind of hanging down a little bit, they're hanging down ahead of the heavy rain and the stronger winds. So when you see that all passes overhead, like that, you're going to get those high winds, you're going to get the heavy rain, all moves in just after those clouds pass through, and that's what we're seeing now here into Columbus. And I do want to mention, though, we actually got a couple more reports of some higher winds in Dublin. 56-mile-per-hour wind gusts in Dublin. Haven't gotten any reports of damage, but we also saw some higher wind gusts into the upper 50s, around 60 miles per hour around London as well. So, you know, we're seeing at least those higher wind gusts, potential that could produce some branches getting knocked down. We saw some of that in Marion. Got a couple of pictures here sent in by a viewer of ours in Marion. And if you have any pictures once the storm has passed, if you have any storm damage, once it's safe to do so, go ahead and take a picture, and you can send that to us, and we'll be more than happy to relay that to the National Weather Service as we're tracking a lot of this active weather. And one thing I do want to mention too, looking at that line of storms as it's moving into the Columbus area, if we can take the radar full just for a second on weather 1. Looking at that storm, it does appear like there is a little bit of an indication where we're seeing maybe some higher, at least a couple pockets of some higher wind gusts. Looking at the velocity picture, we could be talking about maybe upwards of 63, 64 miles per hour in some of those spots there.
Yeah, that's interesting. And the velocity is one thing we can look at from the particular radar, and we can actually look at that and begin to kind of get some idea of what those wind speeds are. 42 miles an hour.
So it's weakened a little bit, so that's good.
Still, that's still something to be concerned about. And these storms, as we talked about earlier, are not just, they don't follow strict guidelines, right? They're chaotic by nature, and they oftentimes will do what they want. And it's very likely that, as in the case of these storms, that they oftentimes will ebb and flow. They don't just have a static high gear. They'll drop down a little bit and they'll ramp back up again. We call those thunderstorms that are pulsing, and that's one of the things we've seen this afternoon and this evening. Unfortunately, they have not pulsed so low that they've alleviated the threat for severe weather. In fact, just the opposite. They maintain their strength. We're talking over 500, 600 miles, a couple of states away, and that's impressive, but it's not unprecedented, and it's something we've talked about by issuing that weather impact alert yesterday in the morning, kind of giving you 24 hours or more advance notice of what's happening. Hopefully, folks got the message and they listened and they had a little bit more of a heads up than if they just
some time
didn't.
to prepare.
Yeah, no time to prepare.
Yeah, and one thing I also do want to mention too about the storms we talked about, there's maybe a subtle weakening trend, but the Weather Service did decide to extend the severe thunderstorm watch. So we had that severe thunderstorm watch in effect until 10 p.m. for parts of central Ohio, now extended a little bit further to the east into southeastern and eastern Ohio, and that goes until 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
So the storm complex, while it may be subtly weakening, there are still going to be pockets of potential winds over 60 miles per hour. So these are going to continue to extend further to the east. So if we can take weather to full, just to give you an idea of where that severe thunderstorm watch does extend now. Again, it still is in effect until 10 p.m. for central Ohio for the Columbus area, but it does extend further to the east. It includes areas around Athens County. It also includes Morgan County, Perry County, Vinton County, until 3 o'clock in the morning. So we're likely going to see these storms continue for quite some time tonight.
Yeah, Aaron, it's one of the things we've watched the past couple of days is just the atmosphere is, obviously very energized with the sunshine we had today. We fully expected that watch would be continued and extended off toward the east. And the challenge is now complicated more so because even though we're seeing daylight, it's ridiculously dark out there with the storm coming through. But sunset is after 9 o'clock this time of the year. Those thunderstorms coming in after midnight for our eastern and southeastern communities and friends, and that simply means that it's going to be in the middle of the night or close to it after 11 o'clock news when you're probably still going to be dealing with a threat for severe weather. You might consider yourself lucky. We're talking to you around Athens County, Hocking County, Morgan County, Guernsey County, or areas in and around there. You've got a little more lead time, so charge your phone.
Yes.
Right? We talked. Make sure your sump pump works.
Yeah, I mentioned earlier. I know, this is the time of the day where your phone's probably maybe down to 10%.
Yes.
So plug it in right now. If you're watching us right now, if you have your charger nearby, grab your phone, plug it in. Mine's at 84%, so plug it in, have a good charge, and then you'll stay safe tonight.
You knew what was coming.
Yeah.
So you had that heads up. One other thing to keep in mind, and we try and make it easier for you to remember and easier for us to communicate to you when times are stressful, your people, your personal, your friends and close relatives, your pets, you don't want to leave them at risk, your pharmaceuticals. Some of them are life-saving or necessary pharmaceuticals, and of course your papers. And if you think about it ahead of time, where are your people? They're probably close by. Your pets are probably huddling right next to you. You might not think so clearly or further ahead about your pharmaceuticals or about your papers, but if you've got that really critical medication for you or a loved one, or if you've got an important paper or documents, just think of the trouble just to get a new driver's license.
Yeah, honestly.
The challenge of that. So just alleviate some of those things. If you have everything in one place, it will make your life easier if you're unfortunately impacted negatively by some severe weather. Power outage, trees down, damage, flooding, whatever. Keep those things in mind. People, pets, pharmaceuticals, and papers, and you'll be a little better off.
Yeah, definitely some good points. And, we're starting to, I just heard it, we're getting some heavy rain now here in the studio, or at least onto the studio right now. So the storm is moving in through central Columbus, and haven't really seen it or heard any really high winds, at least Dublin getting those winds up to 56 miles per hour, but that's still a concern here for tonight.
Yeah, it's really coming down.
Yeah, there you go. It's
that's downtown Columbus?
Hard to see anything.
That's going to be a heck of a time lapse tonight at 11 o'clock, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just that reduced visibility. Another thing, as I said that, it kind of came to reality, that visibility going to near zero. We've seen some just horrific downpours over the past several days. Now everybody fair game for those downpours. If you're driving, if you know somebody that is, just please encourage them. We want them to be safe, of course, and not distracted, but there's no shame in pulling over. Hazards on, slowing down, pump the brakes, give yourself distance.
Find a safe spot to do so.
Yeah.
And, there's nothing wrong with that. Just wait out the storm. These are moving at about 45 miles per hour, some of them a little bit faster than that, so they will pass pretty quickly. So that is at least the good news, but it's still pull off for 5-10 minutes, and then you can go on about it. But one thing to keep in mind, though, after the rain does pass, take it slow, because there's going to be a lot of puddles on the interstates. Hydroplaning is going to be a concern,
at
least until the water dries up.
So let's take a couple of emails or text messages. I keep saying email. Text messages or comments on our Facebook page. That number is 614-460-3345. Don't call that number, just text it. We've got a location or a question from Morrow County. I think Ashley wrote in anywhere in particular. So the western half of Morrow County, you're looking pretty good. Technically still under a severe thunderstorm watch, but that threat is moving off toward the east. Down the line, the southeastern corner of Delaware County, Sunbury and Galena, just north of Westerville, just east of Polaris, getting hit pretty good. And that storm soon to be in Johnstown, St. Louisville, Granville, and Newark. Almost all of Franklin County, certainly in and around 270, getting hit really hard right now.
Yeah, it's like the entire loop.
Just getting
really
it's all
covered,
orange
yeah.
and red. And we hear it and we've seen it. Down to the south, Commercial Point, Darbyville. You have a little time in Asheville and Circleville, Clear Creek, and Tarleton. And then further off toward the south and west. At the moment, we're not seeing parts of Central and parts of Ross or Pike County, but it's coming your way. Just look what's after the west. And this storm line actually extending and strengthening into northern Kentucky, so it's not letting up anytime soon.
What are we looking at around Grove City?
Let's get into Grove City right now, since you asked. Yeah, there's the particular storms in and around Grove City. Urban Crest, Grove City, Columbus Street. West of that, as you're over near Demarest Road and Holt Road, things are improving slowly, but around Urban Crest, and then points off toward the east. Stringtown Road, everybody knows where that is. Around Buckeye Parkway, White Road, and there's 270 and 71 intersection just getting pounded by very heavy rain right now. So keep that in mind. Ponding on the roadways. Yeah, spawning on the roadways is something to keep in mind. And the very heavy rain, the heaviest pocket right now around Franklin County, Bexley, Whitehall, around Alum Creek Drive where the dog shelter is located, near toward Bryce, Reynoldsburg, and Blacklick, all getting hit. Airport, I assume there probably is a ground stoppage at John Glenn, but call ahead if you've got flights or if you're expecting someone to come in. They're probably doing some loops overhead right now as that severe weather threat moves on through. So let's take this full screen for a moment and then get to the latest severe thunderstorm warning right now that has just been issued. That is for, it takes a second as we're looking at this in real time. That is for Ashland, Holmes, Knox County until 9:30 p.m. That particular storm is for Knox County up to a 3/4 inch hail and winds over 60 miles an hour. That's something that we're watching there very closely. Knox County, it's been further off toward the eastern part of the storms so far today, but now unfortunately getting in on the action this evening. So that is that's Knox County for you with the latest storm right there. So let's go back and take a look at the radar scan for you and kind of go through some of those questions. Actually, let me put a loop on that, moving east at 60. So this one in particular is picking up some steam right now. We're going to track that as it moves east at 60. Let me get the tracker there. Oops. Try one thing. Give me 1 second, please. Let me get off of this particular storm and then move this radar scan. Just took a little bit of a hiccup on me. So there is Mount Vernon. There is areas, eastern parts. We were just talking about Morrow County a moment ago, and now Knox County is that storm. And interestingly enough, Aaron, we got done saying a couple of times how these storms don't behave. You know, there's no real guidebook or rule.
Yeah, they just kind of
now
do
60
their own
miles
thing.
an hour. So
okay.
Earlier it was 35, 30, or 40 miles an hour. So Sonnenberg, 826 right now. Mount Vernon, you've got 10 minutes. Gambier, 841. Glenmont and Millersburg heading east over toward now near Coshocton County at 9:05, and then Coshocton at 9:15. So that's that particular storm cell right there.
Looks like we got a report some trees knocked over in the Westerville area.
Let's focus on that right now. That storm has moved through Westerville right now, but some trees knocked down in a particular location or
I can find out.
Sure,
Yeah,
appreciate that. And we're getting some messages coming in on 614-460-3345. We're also going to try and check onto our Facebook page for some comments there, and just to keep everybody up to speed. We don't want your reports if you're at harm's way or put yourself at risk. Please don't do that. But if after the storm passes by, you can give us a report or do so from a safe location. We would certainly like to hear from you, and if it's severe enough, we will send it along to the National Weather Service as part of their storm reporting protocol. Just right now, focusing on this cell, just some very heavy rain around Whitehall, around the airport, around Blacklick, and this storm moving east, probably a little slower than 60, but I'm going to put a track on it. Somebody asked about Fairfield County. We're going to get to that in a second. Let's just move this a little further to the south. I want to make sure that we can fit all the names that are going to show up on this particular track right now. So we'll zoom in just a bit there, capturing areas in Licking and Fairfield County, probably parts of Pickaway County too. Starting up to the north and drawing back down just northeast of Clarksburg, and then moving that at about 40 miles an hour. So Groveport 830, Asheville 835, Pickerington 840, Circleville 847, Baltimore 856, Buckeye Lake right along I-70 at 9 o'clock. You got about a half hour in Buckeye Lake. Lancaster a little longer, Bern, Bremen, and Hopewell. Now Bremen was on our hit list earlier at 9:19 p.m. for Bremen and 9:23 for Hopewell. Question just came in. I saw that in real time about Upper Arlington. So let's go take a look there. In Upper Arlington,
starting to clear pretty quickly.
It is.
Still some heavy rain, but backside of it.
Yeah. Upper Arlington, very confident that you and everybody to the west, Hilliard, Plain City, Prairie Township, West Jeff, around Galloway, you are in the clear from the worst weather, from the severe weather right now. Still technically a severe thunderstorm warning for you, but behind that we're just seeing a lot of rain. A lot of rain and not much, if anything, in the way of any severe weather. No warnings behind this initial line, and that's a little bit of good news.
Yeah, it looks like at least the heaviest of the activity and maybe the strongest winds are kind of right over the John Glenn International Airport.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. Probably can.
I was looking to see if there's any. I know it looks like some flights did just take off, but nothing landing right now. So could also be that period of time where don't have as many flights coming in at this time. But still, if there is a
little unsettling,
likely some circling going on with some of the flights, probably if they're trying to land, they're probably not going to be able to land for at least 20-30 minutes.
Yeah, so got a note here for Delaware. Delaware, you're in the clear. Severe weather threat is only really moving east towards Sunbury and Galena, moving out of Delaware County. So if you're in Delaware, you're going to get some gusty winds and some rain and maybe some lightning and thunder, but for the most part, you are going to be in the clear from the severe weather, and that is good news. Fairfield is the storm headed toward Fairfield going to be severe. I have every reason to believe that it will be, yes. And appreciate the comments coming back, and we'll do our best to get to all of them. Fairfield right now, we just put a track on that, but I'll do it again, just focusing on Fairfield County. You can just give me 1 second to get an accurate speed on that because it's not constant. It's changing a little bit. That's moving southeast at about 45. Starting up near the airport and then southeast at 45.
Yeah, I think the northern end's probably moving a little bit quicker. The whole
you can
system,
see that,
the energy is kind of pulling out ahead. That's why if you look at the radar picture, if you're watching us right now, you can kind of see the northern end's further east than the southern end, so it's got a little bit more steam with it.
Yeah, and that's earlier. You're right. You're spot on. That observation earlier this evening. That line was almost directly north to south, and now it's not. Now it's not. So we had a question about Genoa Township. We'll get up there and take a closer look. Areas and parts. There's Genoa Township, Galena, Sunbury, Westerville. Some thunderstorms to your south, but they're moving away. They're moving away from Genoa Township, Orange Township. So that is some good news there as we're looking at this particular storm system. Really, as we talked about, what about Sunbury? We're literally right there. Great timing, great question.
Yeah. All right, going to cut into this because we have played this long enough, and we know we've been obviously watching some of the heat-related impacts in Ohio, and we know that here in Charlotte and across really the eastern seaboard, this heat dome is going to be situated over us over the next couple of days. Really, next week, it'll really get settled in. And a lot of folks need to be, I guess, especially aware of how that heat impacts your body and what to do when we do have this type of heat for an extended period of time. So we have an awesome interview from one of our healthcare professionals here in the Charlotte area giving us all the advice we could need for this.
So first, I'm just going to have you say your name and then your title.
Just want my...
Yes, at Novant.
Yeah. Kramer McCullen. I'm a family medicine physician at Novant Health and medical director of LGBTQ+ health services.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So just a few questions just regarding to heat illness, especially since it's really starting to, catch up with us. Just what are some of the warning signs that people can look for that way they can take action before things get bad?
Yeah, great question. I think in this time of year, particularly when we're thinking about heat illnesses, there's kind of different stages of heat illnesses. So, earliest signs may be things like dehydration, so increased thirst, maybe feeling a little more fatigued, a little bit lightheaded. That can progress to heat exhaustion when people are experiencing things like dizziness, nausea, vomiting, maybe feeling cool and clammy. And then that can progress to what we call heat stroke, which is where people may feel really hot. Their temperature is very high. They feel rapid heart rate and palpitations. They may feel confused or disoriented. So as you move through those stages, those would be warning signs. If you are out experiencing those symptoms, really important to get to a cool place, be able to cool down, drink sips of water, and try to address those symptoms before they progress.
And then, like, how do you prevent them from happening if you know you're going to be out in the sun all day? What are things you can do that way you don't even have to worry about that?
Yeah, excellent question. I think when we think about ways to prevent some of the effects of heat, some of those things include wearing loose fitting and cool clothing, making sure that you're wearing plenty of sunscreen. You're trying, if possible, stay out of the heat during the peak hours, so about 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. during the highest heat index of the day. Trying to limit sun exposure in that way, and then also cooling methods. Taking water with you, or ways to stay hydrated. Cool, damp cloth or ice if you know you're going to be out in the heat, something you can apply to your neck or your scalp, and things like that.
And for people that struggle with water intake just on a regular day, what pieces of advice would you have for them that they can make sure that they do stay hydrated if they're already struggling with their water intake every day?
Yeah, sometimes it's hard to know how much water to take. So if you don't have any other medical conditions, we would recommend 3 to 4 bottles of water a day. So if you can kind of measure it that way. If you're unable to drink that much water in a day, setting a timer or consistent sips throughout the day to try to stay hydrated can be helpful.
And I know there's, as you said, different levels of severity to the different cases. So for a more serious case, how do you know when it's time to call 911 and get medical attention?
Yeah, I would say if you're feeling overheated, you're feeling short of breath, you're feeling any chest pain or palpitations, nausea, vomiting, or dizziness, those would be reasons definitely to seek medical care. If you're feeling a little fatigued or just slightly overheated, I think you can try the cooling methods first, trying to stay hydrated, getting to a cool environment, an air-conditioned environment if you have access to that. But if you're feeling those more severe symptoms or even moderate symptoms, I'd recommend being seen urgently or emergently by a medical provider.
And then also, like when it comes to the different severity of the cases, I just was wondering if you could explain a little bit the different levels and the progressions of, when it's something that you can treat with things you said earlier, and then, like I said, when it's more severe.
Sure, yes. Let's talk about some of those heat-related illnesses again. When I'm thinking about heat-related illness, usually one of the first stages is just dehydration, meaning you just don't have enough water intake. Maybe you've been out in the heat a little too long, you sweated out some of your fluid, so you may feel a little bit thirsty, you might feel a little bit fatigued. Those would be kind of the early signs. The next stage would be heat exhaustion, where you've been out in the heat for longer, you have passed that dehydration point, and now you're having some symptoms from that dehydration, like feeling really weak, feeling dizzy, maybe nausea and vomiting or headache. Those would all be warning signs that you may be facing heat exhaustion. And then heat stroke would be the most severe case, which is really once your body has heated to a temperature of about 103 or 104 Fahrenheit. You're feeling palpitations, rapid heart rate, your skin will feel warm and red, and then you may also experience changes in mental acuity, so confusion or disorientation.
And then the last thing I have is just, is there anything else that you would like to add that I didn't hit on, or things that you want to say? I may have not asked every question.
Sure. I think a couple of the other heat-related illnesses to think about would be obviously sunburn, so making sure folks are wearing the appropriate amount of sunscreen. We recommend SPF 50 for the face and at least 30 to other parts of the body. Also, for folks that have asthma and COPD, heat can be a trigger for that. So being cautious out in the heat this summer. And then for folks who are going to be most at risk, children and infants, elderly, folks with other medical conditions, so heart failure, diabetes, or other chronic conditions can put you at higher risk for issues with heat. Athletes during the summertime as well. Listen to your body, make sure you're staying hydrated and able to cool down. All of our workers are people who don't have access to air conditioning. And then as a reminder to the public, just making sure you're never leaving pets or people in the car in the heat. That's also a way to get into trouble. So making sure to take those precautions.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. It was wonderful to meet you.
Likewise.
And I hope, thank you. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
When will this air?
What'd you say?
When is this going to air?
4:30.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, great to have this discussion as we try to help you prevent and prepare yourself for the heat that is coming. And I know it's going to put an impact and a strain on many of the cooling centers that will need to open up. And for you at home that have AC, obviously a blessing to have that, especially during this time. But I've been saying throughout the week, please, if you have not had anybody come check your system, do it this week ahead of next week, because if anything happens next week, obviously you will not be the only one calling the HVAC company. So we did have an interesting conversation with a legend, the S Group founder, Lenny Springs, talking about some of the issues and some of the things that he's tried to work on by creating his own finance group and really having an investment type of conversation, not just about the community as a whole, but his legacy and really how he did what he did in a place like Charlotte, North Carolina, and especially the United States when there's not many black-owned banks to utilize and to find funds at. So Nick had this awesome conversation a little earlier. We'll let you listen in.
We have a special guest, sharply dressed man. I should ask. I should have asked him where he's from, but we'll get to that in a second. He is a man with 30 years of experience in the banking industry. He is currently the president and CEO of Charlotte-based S Group Consultants Incorporated. And he's on the board of directors of Redemption Holding Company and the newly formed Redemption Bank. We'll get to that in a moment. Let's bring in our guest, Mr. Lenny Springs. How are you doing, sir?
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well,
it's hot outside.
It is hot outside. Cool as a cucumber, though. I don't see, you didn't break a sweat at all. Where are you from?
I'm originally from a little small town called Johnston, South Carolina, about big as this studio.
Okay. One stoplight type of town?
One stoplight. The biggest thing in my little hometown now is we recently got a McDonald's.
Oh, man. I used to work, that reminds me of Bennettsville, South Carolina.
Yeah.
I worked in the Florence area for a couple of years, and I remember the big news in Bennettsville at the time. They got a cookout restaurant. So that's what that reminds me of.
Yeah.
How long have you been in the Charlotte area?
35 years. I actually came here from Atlanta back in 1990.
Okay.
At the time, I was with First Union National Bank. And my banking career got started in South Carolina with a small bank called Southern Bank, about $1 billion bank.
Yeah.
And back in the 90s, I'm sorry, in the 80s, as you recall, interstate banking laws changed, which meant banks could cross state lines and establish a bank. Well, the bigger banks in Charlotte, the First Unions, at that time it was Nation Bank, wasn't Bank of America, it was Nation Bank, was crossing state lines. And First Union came into South Carolina and acquired Southern Bank. So that's how I got into banking. So was there, South Carolina, Greenville at the time.
Okay.
From there to Atlanta, Florida, back to Atlanta, Charlotte. So I thought maybe I would be in Charlotte for about 4 years, 3 to 4 years, and here I am. some 35 years later, still here.
What is it about the city that kept you here?
Banking.
Banking. What is it about banking? Like, why the banking industry?
You know, Nick, I kind of stumbled into banking.
Okay.
To tell you the truth, when I was living in Greenville, quite frankly, I thought I was going to have a political career. I was invested in the community, involved in the community with the NAACP and other civil rights organizations, being a community activist, and had an opportunity to take a assignment with the Greenville Chamber of Commerce. They were trying to get a referendum passed to build a coliseum. And in order for that referendum to pass, they knew they needed the African American vote. So they hired me to deliver the vote in the black community for the referendum. And during the course of that campaign, I met a gentleman, the CEO of Southern Banks, Sam, can't remember Sam's last name. But he said, "Hey, have you ever tried banking?" I said, "No, not really. I had a degree in business administration." And I had ran an Urban League, which is a community-based organization, which is about social services. So I had an extensive career in the nonprofit world, but had never worked in the for-profit world in corporate America. Met Sam, and the rest is history. Offered me a job. I retired from banking in 2007.
How's that changed your life? I mean, you retired in 2007, but it was sort of that. Have you ever thought about going into banking?
Well, at the time, it was Wachovia Bank. Of course, Wells came in and bought Wachovia. And I actually worked for Wells Fargo for about a week before I decided to leave. Took a golden parachute. At the time, didn't know the parachute had a hole in it, so I crashed. So here I am now, and that's when I started my company, the S Group. But quite frankly, getting back to my political days, a couple of years before that, I met a gentleman named Barack Obama.
Okay. I think we've heard of him. He sounds familiar.
And I met Barack out in Detroit, Michigan, I think it was. At the time, Kwame Kilpatrick was the mayor
in Detroit,
of Detroit. Kwame and I were friends, and he set the meeting up. And I really didn't know who Barack was. I mean, he was just a state senator then. So
he had a meteoric rise.
Yeah, but he said he was going to be president of the United States of America. So fast forward, when he ran, he called me and said, "Hey, come and work for me." I said, "Barack," I could say Barack then because he wasn't president. I said, "I'm supporting Hillary Clinton." He said, "You can't do that. You can't do that." So I said, "Okay." So I started supporting him, and after he got elected, I traveled all over the country being a surrogate speaker for him. After he got elected, he called me up and said, "I want to talk to you. I hadn't forgot about you." So he offered me a position in his administration as a senior advisor in education. And at first I said, "No." I said, "That sounds like work." But I decided to do it because the position was funding for historical black colleges and universities, ensuring that HBCUs continue to get that Title IV funding, which is financial aid. Being a product of an HBCU, I had a genuine interest in doing that. So I worked in his administration for 8 years.
Now you got to shout out your HBCU.
Yeah.
You got to shout them out. What school did you go to?
I went to Voorhees University.
Okay. All right.
Down in Denmark, South Carolina.
So you have this, the president and CEO, again, of S Group here, consultants. How did you get involved with Redemption Bank?
You know what?
And what is Redemption Bank for those who don't know?
Redemption Bank, we will be, I want to say, the 17th African-American bank in the country. We're 1 week old. Last Wednesday, we took over ownership of the bank. Let me give you a little history. How much time we got here?
Oh, you got time. Go ahead.
Okay,
Go ahead.
I don't want to talk too much.
No. This is what the platform is for.
Yeah, I don't want you guys putting me out the studio.
No.
I started an organization here in Charlotte called the 100 Black Men of America. We're about mentoring young African-American men, particularly those young boys that come from female heads of household. We mentor them and hopefully dwell them into becoming men. We can't be fathers, but we can be mentors. The 100 Black Men of America had an opportunity to close the bell on Wall Street, ring the bell at closing back in October of 2023, so almost a couple of years ago. While we were on Wall Street, I met this gentleman named Ashley Bell. Ashley stood up and said, "I'm buying a bank." I said, "Yeah, right." So another young lady in the meeting, Judge Glenda Hatchett, whom a lot of folk know because of her television show, Judge Hatchett.
Yeah.
Glenda and I have been friends for years. So Glenda said to Ashley, "You need to talk to Lenny. Lenny's been in banking for years."
And did he know your background and your history?
No. It was just an introduction, He stood up and said, "I'm about a bank." Glenda said, "Hey, he's got banking experience. Talk to him." I gave him a card. But it just so happened the next day at the airport, my flight was delayed, his flight was delayed, so we had a chance to just sit and talk. So we talked, and he said, "Man, yeah, I'm going to buy this bank in Salt Lake City, Utah." The name of the bank was Holiday Bank, a family-owned bank. The founder and CEO of the bank was getting up in age, and he was ready to get out of the banking business because his daughter was primarily running the bank. So I said, "Okay." Well, I really didn't think nothing of it. A couple of months later, I get a call from a consulting firm out of Boston saying, "Hey, we're doing due diligence on individuals to start this bank. Your name has been brought up, and we need you to fill out this IBFR, information for potential banking and board members." So I said, "Man, do I want to do that?" That's about a 50-page long. I mean, they check everything out. Who you are, have you paid your taxes? They know everything about you, if you fill this thing out. So I said, I'll try it. So I filled it out and really didn't think nothing of it. Well, they came back and said, "Well, you didn't do this right. You got to do that right. We need more information about your taxes and your tax return." So did that, and during that process, Ashley and I stayed in touch with each other. And then we had to raise, first of all, the regulators kept changing the goalposts. First it was about 20 million. Went to about 22, then 24, then 26 in order to acquire the bank. So we was out there raising money. Primarily Ashley was raising the money. He and Bernice King. Bernice King, whom everyone should know, is the youngest daughter of Martin Luther King Sr. Bernice is going to be involved in the bank. In fact, Bernice is going to be senior vice president of what we call Impact Banking.
Wow.
Impact Banking. So we made a decision early on to change the name from Holiday Bank to Redemption Bank. Dr. King was all about redemption. He was all about, as you recall, he was assassinated in Memphis, out there helping the garbage workers. Economics. Economics. So the name of the bank will be Redemption Bank. So it's been a long journey, but we put the money together, got approval from the FDIC on June 9th. had our first board meeting June 10th. I was elected vice chair of the holding company as well as vice chair of the bank board.
June of this year, right?
Yeah, a couple of weeks ago.
I was looking at the calendar. I was like, okay.
Yeah, so the announcement actually came out last week.
Yeah.
And we will officially announce tomorrow, Juneteenth. So you're ahead of the game.
I'm ahead of the game. That's why I had to get you in here.
Yeah. So this station is ahead of the game with the announcement. So the bank will be headquartered in Salt Lake City, Utah. So as vice chair of the board and the holding company, I'll be flying back and forth to Charlotte to Salt Lake City.
You're going tomorrow, right? You're flying out tomorrow, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So, but with technology, we can hold board meetings and holding company meetings by Zoom. So, I'm getting too old to be on these airplanes. So, but I'll go as needed.
You're a young man.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so I got this question yesterday. I knew what it meant, but I want to hear your answer. 'Cause I feel like there are a lot of people that don't know what this means. Black-owned bank. What does that mean?
Well, for me.
And what does that signify? What impact does that have?
It could be a significant impact to the African American community and the minority community. Being a banker with major banks, banks like Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Truett, Fifth Third Bank.
Yeah.
We have all of those major banks here in Charlotte, North Carolina. Redemption Bank, we can't compete with those big banks. We will be only about $125 million bank, small. I will assure you that you look at the major banks, Bank of America, the Wachovia, that's just one branch from a standpoint of deposits. There are several banks in Charlotte that have much larger assets and deposits, and just in one branch. So we're just one branch operation right now. But we're in the process of building our technology platform, our digital technology with Redemption Bank, so that when you get your debit card, I'm not going to say if, I'm going to say when? You get your debit card, you can take the Redemption debit card and go to any ATM and bank. Any ATM and bank once we build out our digital platform. That's the first order for us. Because although we're going to be located in Salt Lake City, Utah, we want you to be able to go to any ATM in the country and bank with us. Now, we're not going to do any mortgage lending. To answer your question, we're going to be looking at small and minority business lending. Small minority business lending. There's a market out there for that.
Yeah.
The major banks, many times, are bypassing those opportunities. We think that we can make a difference with small minority business.
All right, so that is the amount of time that we've had over the last 2 hours for our stream. But if you'd like to pick up this conversation, again, it is on WCNC Plus, this streaming app, and you can stream whenever you would like. Thank you for joining us tonight. We'll see you tonight for the 11 o'clock news on WCNC.